Alrighty, we are live now. Yes, we are live. Hello, everyone. Happy, oh, I'm on the wrong screen. Happy Saturday. It is April 15th, halfway through the month here. So I have decided to do something just a little bit different here. What I'm going to do today is, instead of like how I had the 4 screens in previous videos, I am going to have just the screens up like this so that I don't have to keep switching through the time frames, and we can just take a look at it. So me and the bird say hello. I hope you are enjoying your day. Give me 1 second. Let me pull this up, the YouTube chat, so that I can see it. Okay. Alrighty, we are good. Okay, so what I have here on the left is the monthly, this is the weekly, and this is going to be the daily, so that you know exactly what we are looking for here. When you see purple lines, I have drawn those broadening formations on the month so we can see where they are. And then these blue lines are this indicator that Jamal kind of helped out. He helped us out with. It is called the wedge maker, and it basically shows when something is making a wedge, so I don't have to draw those lines myself. So I really like that. But anyway, so looking at the VIX right now on the month, as you can see, we triggered down to the month and we have hit magnitude, and we have almost touched the bottom of this broadening formation. So I'm really watching this to see if we're going to break through this broadening formation, or if we're going to reverse from here. So there's still room to the downside. 1660 is the next support, and then the next support after that is going to be around 15 bucks, which to me, between 15 and 16 is pretty strong support. And so we need to see what it does there, because if you can see right here at 16, it's rejected here several times, and then back here you can see it was a resistance that it broke through. So I'm interested to see how VIX acts in this area here. So that's how we're looking on the month. On the week, as you can see, you know, we had a really strong down week, and we're almost reaching the bottom of this wedge that it's been doing on the way up. It's kind of been wedging in between here. So I want to see if it breaks through there. And then of course on the day you see this shoulder that's played out. And again, it still does have some magnitude to the downside, to that 1650-30 area that it could get to. So of course, if we see this continue to drop, we should expect that the markets will continue to go up. It dropping could coincide with SPY trying to finally go for the gap that it's been doing its staircase up towards, basically this year. So yeah, that's what VIX looks like. And then looking at the dollar on the month, has also triggered the 2 down and hit its magnitude. The next target would be way down there. So if it does continue to go, that would be around $100 would probably be your first psychological, and then it's 98.29 textbook H right here on the week. But we do see also that it rejected right here, so it could certainly reverse from here, because it's had 1, 2, 3, 5 red weeks. Is this a PMG? Yeah, it's a possible PMG to the upside, you guys. So I'm not sure what would move the dollar like that, but if it did, that is possible. And you can see here on the daily where it kind of rejected right here. What happened the last few times it was here. So go back. I kind of blew through that last time. It was over here, that 101. So keep your eyes on the dollar. See kind of what happens here now that it's had such a decline in these red weeks. You know, it had these green weeks and then it just gave it all back up, and it basically TTO'd these folks. So possible reversal after this TTO or continuation, something to look out for. So the Dow has been strong. We talked about the Dow with this hammer that it printed last month, and it's gone in force. So it's still back up in that chop area that we talked about before, that it had been stuck in, and it still has magnitude to the upside. So if it wants to continue, 343.76 would be my target there for the month. And then as you can see, we just been going straight up for 5 weeks. So this actually is a possible PMG to the downside. I'm always looking for that, even if we're continuing to be green. Although on the week and on the month, you can kind of see an inverted head and shoulders forming. There's your shoulder, your head, and here's your shoulder. So essentially your shoulder support is about this 315, and then your resistance is going to be this 343.64-ish, and once it breaks out of there, it can continue to go. So you kind of see the same thing on the month, sort of. I can draw this broad information. You know, I want to change it to purple for my month. And then this one, I thought I had did this for the Dow, but I didn't think I did. Nope, that's not a higher enough. That looks like equal highs. We're going to use this big one. There we go. Alright, so we know where we can continue. If we do want to keep going from here. And then looking at it on the daily, you know, we always want to see where it is in relation to its 200. And we see we wash below and wash right back above. So same inverted head and shoulders. This one on the daily has played out so far. But we're just right back into this chop area that we were in before. So, you know, listening to Rob this morning on the weekend shift, he said one thing is you'll notice is that we've been range bound. It's a range bound year. But we knew that because we knew that we moved so much last year that this year was most likely years. It's just this type of range-bound choppy action. So it was a good refresher and reminder to listen to him, because I realized that I've been kind of repeating the same levels for a while now. And it's because the stuff is basically range-bound. So looking at the NASDAQ, right now it's a doji on the month, but you know, if we continue to see the weakness in the VIX and the strength in Apple and Microsoft, then this could continue, and then we have that magnitude at that 13,712. So keep an eye on the NASDAQ or basically your tech stocks, because they've basically been doing pretty well. A lot of them ended with this type of candle on the week. Not quite a hammer, but basically a 2 down green reversal. So looking to see if that finishes next week. So the NASDAQ will need to break this 13,200, which is that monthly trigger, and then we could see it going up to that next target. So looking at it on its daily, you do see this. Wanted to point out this shoulder, head, shoulder here, or even the W, however you want to look at it. So your shoulder is going to be, this is going to be your support for that shoulder, 11,700. And your resistance is going to, this is going to be your resistance, 13,200. So all the EMAs are pointing up, though. We've crossed above our 200. Even on the monthly, this is crossed. So it's all looking bullish. You know, we do have our red days, but then the bulls buy the dip. So, you know, at this point, most of the red days are really just profit taking and corrective activity until we really see a strong flip, I think. Which when we get to Microsoft, I'll show you that, and even SPY. But as of now, you know, the bulls are still in control from what I see. This looks like a cup and handle. Almost like a cup and handle. Or this is the cup and handle. Or if you want to call this a bull flag to break out. So yeah, if it breaks that monthly, we can definitely see NASDAQ fly. So IWM has been a little bit weak. Let me hide these real quick. Yeah, IWM has been a little weaker. As you can see on the month, we are red, but still inside. So not really doing anything because it's really still staying inside of this entire range right here. It almost to me looks like an H, but this range right here is so not solid that it's just really been bouncing. It still to me makes for a good trade when you can catch the move. Like for instance, this week right here was an awesome week to catch that move. So when you can catch those good ranging moves like this 3 or this 3-2 down, if you had swung from that 3, that type of thing, like these are, it can be cheaper to play than SPY, but you know, when you wait for the right move, it can definitely move. So we got an inside week here, but that candle is not really giving a whole lot. It's not really a shooter or a hammer, but it is green. So but on the daily, we do see that we are under the 200 and have been there basically since we gapped down back in March, about a whole month ago. And it's like it's slowly working its way up towards this gap, but it's just really bouncing. So that's my first target to the upside. If it can, you know, finally make its way up there, it's going to be that 181.39. That's the gap that I think it would go for. Then it may try to go for this 200 here at 183, and then to the downside, it's been finding support basically around 173. But if it can break that, then we can see that 167.79, which will be last month's low. But again, this is still kind of range bound. If anything, on this daily, it's almost looking like a bear flag. So it could even come up, touch that gap and then die, or it can, you know, move up. This also could be a little inverted head and shoulders, but it needs to break out. So we'll have to see what it does. And then let's take a look at Apple, our big dog, because Apple's been doing really good. So on the month, it took out last month's high, came back in, and then now it's looking like it's trying to go for it again. So if it does, there's plenty of room to the upside. 176 would be the target for Apple there. And if you kind of see, it's not really a PMG. Almost. My eyes are old, but I think these two highs, I think this candle is higher. So be aware of that strong move that it can PMG down. But for the most part, I'm still seeing this shoulder, head, shoulder. So for the most, this inverted head and shoulders really kind of broke out above that 157.82. So just want to see if that continues. You see it corrected to the 8 and the 20, but then they bought it right back up. So that's kind of been the name of the game. Like, they've been buying the dip. It dips, but then it's almost like a bear trap because they buy it right back up aggressively, I might add. So and then you kind of see this wedge that it's making to the upside. It washed below it a little bit, but it's found support and it's still going. So Apple is still looking good. When you look at it above the daily, we're way above the 200 now, and finding support on these 8 and 20s. So The 20 at the most is where it's dropped. The most it's dropped to since, well, in the past month. So a little teeny wash below the 200. Basically, Apple has been strong. So it may continue to run. Earnings is what, it's like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, beginning of May. So we shall see how it acts. The last time it did the same thing, it kind of ran up until earnings, and then consolidated, fell, and then kept on going. So I have to see if it's going to continue that same strength. Yeah. So that's Apple. Microsoft looks very similar, just in the tune of we had a strong push and then took out last week's high and came right back in. So Microsoft, I think, is more at a do or die point. This right here on the daily is a mini Head and Shoulders. So I'm kind of watching to see if this plays out and Microsoft breaks this range that it's been in. It would need to really break 281 with force, but 281 to about 290 is the range that it's kind of been stuck in. So want to see if it breaks, which way it breaks. If it breaks to the downside, we know that we have this range down here. We know we have a gap on the daily, this 276.20 that we can target. But this also may have just been the corrective activity after it hit this resistance right here. So, but you know, it's been super extended. Like, look at this. This 3, this 1, this 2. I mean, it's been going. No PMG here, but there is this inverted Head and Shoulders. So again, my support really is that gap. It could still come down, fill that gap, and still play all the way out. It could even come all the way down to this 200, 259, 260. It's the same 200 on the day. Just as some corrective activity and still go. So, yeah, because you see this shoulder here. It could do that whole shoulder thing right there, which would coincide with this whole inside year range that we've been talking about, where you know, things are just trading in ranges. You have some power moves, but then you have days or even weeks where it's doing nothing. So but we want to keep watching these because they essentially move the big dogs. So looking at the Qs, looks exactly like Microsoft. The only difference is that it's not on the daily. We don't have that Head and Shoulders. This looks a little more like Apple's chart. See, a little more like Apple's chart, where, you know, we took out that last month's high, came back in, printed this on the week where we retraced basically, but they bought it right back up, and we are above the 200 on the month, the week, and the day. So no specific pattern here. Well, cup and handle. But yeah, watching this to see if it continues to the upside, as we do have magnitude where we can continue, and we do for the most part have time frame continuity. Well, on Apple, the Qs are kind of mixed now, and I believe that it's because of Microsoft being mixed. With the Microsoft is completely red as far as time frame continuity, but Apple is completely green. So it's one of those things where, like, if Apple decides to die and Microsoft does die, then everything else will follow. But if Microsoft decides to flip this and Apple continues, then we should continue to see green. Microsoft, oops, I didn't mean to do that. No, this should be the week. Sorry, y'all, new thing. So Microsoft basically can flip the month green, like almost. You can see this is really right. It closed right where it can flip the month green. So this time frame continuity, even though it is completely red at the moment, because the month and the quarter are the same, because we started a new quarter, this could easily flip completely back green and push us back up. So just wanted to point that out. The same thing with the Qs. The month and the quarter can easily be flipped completely back green. But consequently, if Apple does flip red, then it could flip these Qs completely red. For Apple to do that, it would need to break below 164.30. So 164.30 will be a level to watch. If Apple flips that back red, it could flip everything else back red. So speaking of all of that with SPY, so I had posted earlier in the Discord, probably earlier this week when we started to uncouple on Tuesday, that we were basically looking to see if SPY held 408, because that is where it would flip the month and the quarter green, and we would most likely have red time frame continuity. So as of now, it's held that. We did wash below a little bit, but they bought it right back up. They're buying the dip. So right now we have that full time frame continuity. We have this 2 down in force, 2 down, 2 up in force, and so our magnitude there is 418. SPY has been struggling a lot, but we understand why. It was last quarter's high. No, not last quarter's high. It was last month's high. That gave us, that 410. It struggled at a little bit, and then also this resistance line right here on the daily. So if it does continue, we're looking for that 418, and then we are also still mindful of this gap here. So this gap here is about 421.20 that we're looking for. And also, we're looking at it on the daily. We're above our 200. Now, what I was saying the last time that we had looked at it was I saw a couple of patterns on this chart, on the daily chart. On the larger zoomed out, I saw this shoulder, this head, and we've been in this shoulder area. So my shoulder was from about 410, and I said to the top of this trend line, which is about 413, was going to be my first major resistance for the shoulder area. So we made it up to about 415, which could still be a shoulder if this decides to fall from here. But we know that it, looking at everything else, just depending on what happens, especially with Apple and Microsoft. Apple decides to die from here. Microsoft continues to die. This may be its rejection point. Consequently, if Microsoft decides to push from here, it may push out of this wedge that we've been making and finally break out, go for that gap that we were talking about. So the larger head and shoulders we see, okay, and it may have reached its topping point here. So we are aware of that. But then when you zoom in further, the shorter term inverted head and shoulders played out just a little, and now we have sort of a cup and handle, or you may want to call this a bow flag. However, some people look at it differently. I don't, because of this top wick, but for me it's a cup and handle. Either way, it's a bullish signal, a bullish pattern that's just basically signaling that it's going to continue to the upside. If the head and shoulders works out and it does fall, that 408 is going to be the major support, because that is where it flips. It's going to be where it flips us completely red. And as you can see, it's rejected there several times, and they've bought it up. So that 408 is what we'll be looking for to see if that rejects from there. That's a strong support, and then we'll look for most likely this 405. The 200 is going to be right at 400. We know that 400 is going to be like, if we get back to this level, it's going to be a magnet again, and we're probably going to do this same chop area around it. And if it does, I would avoid this until it breaks either but back above or below. But that would be a strong support. And then we do have this gap here on the daily, 396.50, that it could possibly try to fill. But yeah, looking really interesting. We don't have really a weekly signal here. Let's see, we on the 2 week. Nope, nothing there. So yeah, we don't have really a weekly signal there, but that's what we have. We do know that, again, we've been watching this wedge. So this could honestly even come all the way back down to this 388 and then bounce from there and do something like this. Move this over. So it could do something like this. No, that's a hard drop. It would probably do something like that. So come down to that 393 support. Because remember, that's been a strong support. It's bounced hard from there several times. And as you can see, that would fill the gap, come down here, and then it may just do that again where it just took off. Right here, it came down and took off. So it could even come all the way down to do that. Wedge back up, back down. This would be still above the 200, and then boom. That could be a bullish case, or it could come down, come back up, come down, and wash below. So interesting to see what it does when it breaks out of this range. Oops. I think that it would be a good idea to let it break out. If it decides it wants to break out, let it break out and find some support here and then continue going. But yeah, be aware of this range that SPY is trading in. So I wanted to show a couple of 50% monthly. BA has triggered. We know that BA actually has some really bad news on Friday that really sent it, and it's got a huge gap on the day now. So there's something you want to be aware of. Now, a lot of times, sometimes when it hits that 50% trigger, I now like to look to see if they buy it there or sell it, whichever way I'm looking at it. Just to see, because sometimes that's the level where there are orders sitting at. So now that it's gapped down, I think you should watch it, because first of all, it's hit the bottom of this upwards trend line that it's been in. So because it did that, rejected, and came back in, it could definitely try to somewhat fill this gap before continuing down, or it can completely fill that gap and then keep going, because that was a news-based drop. And if you look at it on the weekly, even with that drop, it still is kind of in that same range that it's been trading in. So it didn't necessarily kill it. So keep BA on your watch list to see if it continues that outside months, because it can certainly still break down. As you can see, it has lots of range to come down. But yeah, snow is another one that is also triggered. It literally just triggered though. So again, watch it, because this could be an area where they buy it back up. As you can see by the hammer that it kind of printed. Well, it's not really a hammer, but it's a strong bullish candle that it printed on the day. But that could also just be some corrective activity where it comes back up to this resistance line and then comes down to finish that outside month. So keep an eye on snow. Also, you'll see here on this daily, we got a shoulder head. That shoulder can come all the way up to that resistance line that I mentioned before it drops. So it could also just chop a little bit right here, hit it, and then boom. So watch snow to possibly finish that outside month. Roku has not triggered it yet. However, it's close. The trigger is 61.19. So we're about 50 cents off of there. It did hit it, and then it came back in. So really, I'm only looking for this to actually finish. Like, it needs to get out of the zone. If it decides to come back into the zone, I definitely wouldn't touch it. but I'm looking to see if it's breaking out of this range to finish that outside month. Y'all know outside months often happen after threes, so and then you also have an inside week here. So really, if it can really break that 60 with some force, it could really go and hit that 54. So keep an eye on Roku. The way it's wedging here, it may decide to fall. And then shop is another one that is, it almost triggered. Well, it did trigger, but then it came back in. Now, I had this here because it did trigger the outside month. Wait, did it? Double check. Almost triggered the outside month, but it came back in. But I like that because what it did was it washed below the 200 and then came back in with force. This is a possible rev strat here, which, I mean, that is some magnitude right here, 48. But, you know, the ATR is $2. It can definitely do that. If it rev strats, then that would be have been a nice reversal from this 50% mark and from the 200 for it to continue to the upside. Remember, we have this gap unfilled here at 50 that it could go for, and then it will have triggered the 2 up on the month again, and the magnitude for that is about 55. So then you can also see how it's kind of been doing this uptrend here up to the 200 and finding some support there. We washed a little bit below, but then, you know, came back above. So keep shop on your list. Hello, Richard. And hey, Jamal. Okay, I will look at AMD, and yep, I have that right here. So I'll look at that in just a second. Let me just go through these other ones real quick. XLE Energy is about to trigger up on the month, so keep that in mind. It's had a nice correction, actually, corrective activity, so I would watch it to see if this continues. We're back above our 200. It had that good news where it just basically gapped above. If anything, if we do fall, that would be my first support for it, would be that 83.04. And then, but we do know, I mean, for the last few months, energy has been gapping and not necessarily filling those gaps. Like, we still have this unfilled gap down here from, when is this? October of last year. So the energy is almost like China 2.0 with the gaps, where it's just going. But you can also see this shoulder, head, shoulder. So that shoulder support is right around that gap, that 83. So as long as it holds above that, then I would think this is going to continue to move to the upside. So and with that fresh TTO, also with that gap, I was watching it the last couple of weeks to see if it would fill it, and it didn't. It tried a little bit, but then they brought it right back up. So watching to see what energy is doing, and of course ZOM will be the favorite on that. It used to be Oxy, but too many people were playing Oxy, and it was starting to get on my nerves. So I like ZOM better, honestly. It's already triggered the monthly to the upside, so 119.65 is going to be my magnitude for that. And then kind of the same with XLE. The support is going to be about 110.09. And then once it can break this range, it may bust out. We have a nice inside week here on ZOM, so we have to see how it acts right here. SOXL for your favorite chip plays. So inside month but red, Kiki has been hollering bearish on chips for probably about a couple of weeks now. And one thing with Kiki is when she says that, sometimes she may be a little bit early, but you should watch. The fact that she's saying bearish on chips, I completely agree here. If you notice that it's been making lower highs on the weekly. So watching to see what they do. This, it kind of double topped here, and then it made a shooter on the week. Even though it's green, it's still a shooter on the week. So it barely took out last week's, well, the previous week's low, but it didn't have enough strength to even go halfway above that candle. So that's why the weakness there for me. And then, you know, with SOXL's been under its 200, and now it's in this range where it's wedging, and I think it's actually wedging to come down. So you know, SPY wedge was like at the top of the wedge. This is at the bottom. So looking to see more weakness in those, including AMD. You see that now we knew that because of this strong month that it had, that it may be inside for this month, and so that's what it's kind of doing. It's kind of in a mother bar issue, which is this right here, but it's weak. So once it made that high, it's consecutively made lower highs since then, and it printed an even better shooter on the week. It's not really an actionable signal because it's a 222 continuation, but it may be something where you can find entry with, you know, after some like corrective activity to the upside. Like for instance, here on the daily, it could possibly rev strat. That's just a possible setup here. So if it did, then you could take that as a short to the downside. So again, this is mother bar issue. So if anything, my support is really going to be down at about 83. That's where I think it's going to possibly go. But yeah, I think that there's weakness in that. Now granted, wait, this is 1, 2, 3, 4 red days. So yeah, some corrective activity is probably overdue. We may see it try to rev strat. Let me look here on this 4 hour. But we're under all of the EMAs except for the 200 on the 4 hour. So that's actually probably why Kiki has been hollering puts on chips. One thing you'll notice though is that, like, even though it's weakness, they are aggressively buying the dips, but then they're shorting them. You'll see that with Nvidia because it's kind of similar, except they took out last month's high. But you see, since basically the beginning of the month, we're making lower highs, but they'll aggressively buy the dip, but then they'll short it right back down. So Nvidia is also in a spot, actually it's in a tight wedge right now, so you want to really see if this falls. Nvidia falls, then the rest of them will probably follow suit. I believe that INTC has earnings. When is that? Oh, that's not till April 27th. Okay, so we got some time on that. But yeah, this is just finding support on that 200. Sorry for the noise, y'all. All right, so looking at China. Come on. So China has been weak now. We've been watching China all year, kind of because of how it ended last year, and then because of, I guess, the tensions and things that's been going on, the restrictions with China and things, it's shown a lot of weakness. And then also now China is starting to fight back with their own restrictions. So still watching it just because it's been a decent play. Honestly, both ways. I've been playing Baba both ways, and it's really been wonderful. So right now what we have, let me switch this back to the day. On the month is we're red. On the week, there's not really an actionable signal here unless it finds strength to rev strat. It's more likely going to do like a continuation to the downside there. And then we are back below the 200, but it's approaching an area where it's been bought up before. So 2805 may be an area that it can get to, and then have to see how it reacts there. But then we do also have some more gaps to the downside where it can continue if it does decide to break that. I think that 28 is going to be a pretty strong support. As you can see, that'll also be the bottom of this trend line. So you see it came up, even though it made higher low, even with all of this. So it'll be interesting to see if it even comes down to this 28 and bounces from here. That's another higher low. So otherwise, if it breaks below, then we can start targeting these gaps to the downside. And BABA's going to look similar, except that recent gap that it just had. I think it was the AI news that it had. That would be my first target to the downside if it does continue. You see with that AI news, it broke above the 200, but it did fall right back below. So keeping that in mind, it's not really looking too hot for BABA. Again, it would have to find some strong strength and possibly TheStrat on the week to go anywhere. But yeah, that's BABA. Airbnb, I had this on the list for the inside week, and to see if it will continue. It did not quite hit its monthly target. It came close enough, and then it reversed. So I want to see if it's going to, if that was just corrective activity, because this can basically do an H after it's rejected here. I need to see if it's going to keep rejecting there, or it can bust back up. It's a small tiny gap that it could fill here, and then it may want to go, because we do have a fresh TTO. Ooh, bars. But so my resistance here is going to be this 200 though, because we know it will support. And so it's looking like it may be resistance, especially if these and bust out from there. So watch a Airbnb to see what it does. Also with cats. What happened? Okay, there we go. Okay, so cats, I wanted to actually point out. Oh, my thing is being really slow today. So cats, we were looking at, because it is really close to triggering the quarter, and it did, but then it came right back in. So I'm looking to see if it's going to, if that was just a TTO for it to actually move, or if this is going to really come back up. This magnitude for this quarter is really far, and that could really have just been corrective activity from this solid move. So I'm really watching it to see what it does. The month will trigger the quarter though. So if it does break to 1173 and holds under there, then it can continue to go. When you look at it on the month, this is almost like this was a TTO, and it can come back. But if you fib it, these up here, just real quick, it came right back to that 50% mark, which is about 213, and it bounced. So keeping that in mind, and then we have an inside week here that's green. So, and it finished right above its 200 on the week, but these are pointing down, so it's kind of conflicting. We just know also we have time frame continuity that can flip green. So if that happens, then we can probably count that as corrective activity. For it to flip green though, it needs to break above 230.18. So when you look at it on the daily, it's almost like an inverted head and shoulders here. You got your shoulder, you got your head. So your shoulder would find support about 214-ish. And your resistance is this 200 that it just closed above. So we closed above the 200, the 8, and the 20. They're trying to point up. So have to see what cat does. It does have a gap here on the daily that it could also go for. So yeah, watch cat. I really like it. I was looking at it after this drop, and then it had this corrective activity. So now I'm looking to see if it's going to, this could still H, or if this is going to maybe even do something like that and keep going. And then last but not least, Disney. I like Disney because there's one thing I wanted to point out, and I believe it was here on the daily. So Disney has earnings on May 10th, right? So one thing I want to point out, I'm going to scroll this over because I really want y'all to see this. So with Disney, the last time it had earnings, you see that this right here is what it did. It had a run up all the way until earnings from about a month before. The earnings was February 8th, and it had a run up basically, I mean, shoot, from December. But look at where it gapped. It gapped right here, January 11th. Had some corrective activity and then just kept going to earnings, right? But if you look where it's at, where that gap is at, it literally just gapped up from that same area. So watch Disney, because we also have this shoulder, head, shoulder, which is really supported by that gap. So 96.98 would be a strong support for me. It's kind of wedging here, making some sideways activity. It could really explode, because from the last time it was here, that's what it did. It came up, had corrective activity, and then it boomed, and it just ran for a long time. So, I mean, it cleared the 200 and everything. So it could definitely do that exact same thing. Could do the opposite. But I just wanted to point out that I noticed that where it was at is just really, it's really, really interesting with the pattern that we see, that type of thing. So I think you should really watch Disney. If it does boom, it's also going to trigger the monthly to the upside over that 103. So then you'll have magnitude to about, I believe there's a gap. Is there a gap? There's a gap at 115, and there's a gap at 119. Oh wait, that filled that. That's what happens when you're like squinched in like that. So it filled that 118 gap, but not the 119 gap. So keep Disney on your list. So Jamal said Mara. He said crypto stocks, actually. Mara, Riot, MSTR, Hut, and Coin. Look at them, y'all. Look at them. So they have been doing great. Basically, you know, they have been beat down. And so crypto is doing a really nice recovery. This 3-2 is gorgeous, because basically you see it TTO and the bulls resumed or held control, however you want to call it. So it still has magnitude. So the monthly target 1375 would be the target for that. Fresh break above the 200. So it would be nice if this maybe has some corrective activity down to it, found some support, and then keep going. There probably are gaps, but you see it broke out of that wedge that it was doing. So yeah, cool. And you should definitely keep your eye on them because they are booming. He said Riot. Oop. Look at that, the big old green bar. Big green bar, beautiful 312 up break. And same thing with the 3-2, and there's still magnitude. You got till 21 possibly for the month. This is almost a beautiful W here. Almost a double bottom. Well, I mean, technically it's just not equal, whatever. But it looks good. Looks good. Crypto looks like it's booming. This corrects anything. It's a little teeny gap there, but it's so much upside that yeah, you really should probably probably pick your favorite. 1924 is a gap fill there. Pick your favorite crypto stock and watch it, kind of like how we were doing with China, because it may be that time for crypto again. So you don't want to miss this train. Don't chase though, but you know, find some nice corrective activity. You know, this might correct, MSTR might correct to this gap here. May not, but you know, for these hammers, we should have been looking at crypto stocks last month. I didn't even see these hammers, or I would have paid attention. Good call out, Jamal. 364.04 is the monthly out of these wedges, and just went. Coin. Now, coin has really, really been beat down. So this to me is like a really good, if it's really going to go, like that could have some serious range. I mean, it's hit forever lows. We've never seen these before lows type of thing. So a 3-2 up on the quarter would be great for coin to finally get some legs going and break out of this range right here that it's been in. And this downtrend, because it really hasn't been able to make higher highs on any time. Well, on the daily, but on the rest of these time frames, everything is lower highs. But we got a nice inverted head and shoulders here on the week. So coin possibly has a lot of room to the upside. So 87.21 would be a monthly break if you want to like really swing this, and it really, really continues. And then it looks like it's this gap fill, which is going to really be that first resistance, because that gap fill is probably going to coincide right with this resistance line and the 200. So if it can break out of there and finally make a new high, what did there? If you look, nope. Yep, that's why that wedge is there. Really needs to break that 87. And then breaking that 87.43 would be great. Yeah, it looks like it wants to. Slow bleed up there. May reject. Find some support. And then really boom. So y'all watch crypto for a while. Not just for the days. I think that this may have some recovery legs. Especially if, you know, the dollar continues to stay weak and we still have issues and things like that. I really think that that's a good call out, Jamal. All right, I'm going to check the chat real quick, and I'm gonna give some notes from what Jamal has said. McDonald's full time. Look at this bee sting. Yeah, it did. It 2 up on the year. 2 up continuation. It's just on the quarter, gone. This looks great. This is at an all-time high. Looking for a retracement back to. Let me put this back to. No. Looking for a retracement back to discount before continuation up. Netflix. Cup with handle pattern seen on the weekly. Okay. Cup handle. Love it. Love it. Love it. Full time frame continuity is indecision. Earnings this week looking for a breakup. I completely agree with this. I'm definitely watching Netflix. I think that Netflix is going to do really good. We see that cup and handle on the weekly, and then also this inverted head and shoulders on the daily kind of played out. But then the shorter term one, head and then shoulder, as long as it holds this 336, then yeah, I think that Netflix definitely is going to boom with this earnings. So love that. Google, hammer on the week. Yes, this is also on my list. It's near broadening formation resistance. Seen on the week, full time frame continuity up from the week to the year. Actionable is 212 on the week. So this is awesome. It's still more magnitude also on the monthly. That 111, 81 will be that 212 up if it wants to continue. It's looking good. XLV is at its resistance zone on the weekly. The sector is bullish and looking for a continuation upward. So you got a red 2 down for 2 down, 2 up if you want to continue that. You could even look at that on the 4 hour and catch it on that 4 hour. The 6-man player is ON. If y'all want to know what 6-man player is, ask Jamal. Is a lot of handy things. Man, is a wealth of knowledge. ON, double inside week with mother bar issues. Yes, it's stuck in this. But that we do know that double inside weeks, although these are not technically actionable signals, we know that that's consolidation and usually leads to a big breakout. So double bottom seam on the 65 minutes. Needs the hour for full time frame continuity up from the hour to the week. Let's see. Yep, and then if it continues and it can finally break out of this, I mean, nice weekly, I guess, range. If it wants to break out of that, then it can actually send the month up. So just need to see if it can break through. And then he has Crocs. I wear Crocs and don't even play the stock. That's a shame, y'all. And I love them. Like, all my girls have, all my children have them. All of them, they all have Crocs. I should definitely look at the stock more. And I like this ATR too, $5. So it has triggered 2 up. He said it looks good on the weekly potential cup pattern. Cup handle. Almost an inverted head and shoulders too. If you count this low, it's just a really tight head and shoulders. But I mean inverted head and shoulders. But the fact that it's triggered the monthly should help break it out of there because it looks like it's starting. I like it. So as long as it stays above that 131 area, target 143. Which, I mean, with an ATR of $5, it can definitely do that easy. Oh, that's on the 65. I'm saying, like, why does it look like that? On the daily, yes, it looks like it's breaking out of this range of madness right here. This is such a chop range, but it looks like it's finally breaking out of that. So, I like Crocs, y'all. It's a good call. Put that on this homework. Now he said he may take the monthlies with earnings in 19 days. So do keep that in mind. Earnings is on May 4th for this. So Jamal says 6-man is just something I'm watching. Oh man, okay. I thought okay. Alright, so does anybody have any questions before I head on out? Oh wait. Kayla said Apple also has their WWDC in June. First week, that may also be a catalyst to keep it on that same pattern as last time with the drop and then gap up right before. VR announcement in June, supposedly. Okay. Okay. They're not letting Apple fall, so that makes sense that we may actually stay bullish until then. Thank you for that, Kayla. Alrighty, well, if nobody has any other questions or tickers that you guys want me to look at, I'm going to head on out and enjoy the rest of my day. Y'all be safe out there. Oh, that sounded so country. Me and my Atlanta. I've been down here so long. Y'all have a good day. Enjoy the rest